Hi, friends. I don't know if Erica was just talking about defense people. A couple important precursors to the topic here. Number one, I really should be Google Hangout seeing Rachel right now because I told her I was going to call her before bed. But I'm having a MOI moment, and I feel the need to get the shit out. MOI refers to the chapter of the book Sherwood Anderson's Winesburg, Ohio, in which is called Men of Ideas. Anyway, you can read that if you'd like to. It's about classic ENTP character. Regardless, a second precursor, and hopefully Rachel will arrive at some point, and I'll say to her, I had to get this shit out right now. So I gotta go to work. And so I made an executive decision to live stream now instead of calling Rachel. Anyway, second precursor to what I want to talk about is the construction didn't used to. I like that weird, ridiculous, wrong construction. Meta-analysis didn't used to exist. Didn't used to exist is what? Wait, you mean once never existed? Or once didn't exist, I guess, or prior to meow didn't exist. Okay. And meta-analysis obviously existed prior to meta-analysis then, if what I'm saying is true, right? So meta-analysis didn't exist because it was a power unlocked with the advent of a meaningful metaphysical ecosystem. Which means it did sort of start prior to the internet, but it was like one very early example of meta-analysis, and it's sort of the only example of meta-analysis from this guy, is Marshall McLuhan's "The Medium is the Message." That's his attempt at conveying some meta-analysis. It's sort of, I think Marshall McLuhan's probably an ENFP, so he's not actually a meta-analyst, but the point is that's a good early example of meta-analysis. And, I guess I don't really know. I don't really keep track of which ideas go to which philosophers enough or who we use, but Kierkegaard comes to mind as a non-contemporary prior example of meta-analysis. But the other thing is, those early examples didn't have an actual meta frame to work with. And I'm not just talking about cognitive functions. I'm saying that to do genuine meta-analysis means to provide, ultimately, a clear understanding, not just of individual people, but humanity as a whole, its directionality, and presumably its destiny. No, not at the moment.
Your other cat was here.
The Trouble?
The gray one.
That's Trouble. Okay. Thank you. What am I thinking about? Okay, so like all of human intellectual history almost represents either either analysis or negation of analysis, which was an early form of meta-analysis. And some things attempted to do positivist meta-analysis, and they ended up being magical thinking. So basically, you've got positive analysis, that's TE. You got negative analysis, that's TI. You've got like negative meta analysis would be like collapsing shit, like relativism. Okay, basically early. These are non-real forms of meta-analysis. Really, they're proto forms. Relativism or like even empiricism or something is a proto form of meta-analysis. It's collapsed down into analysis because there was no frame in which to support it as a meta-analytical being. And I like when people come. I'm able to go back and forth pretty easy in my head, and in fact, that comment right there is interesting enough for me to respond to it. So I appreciate it. So what distinguishes actual meta-analysis from examples of proto-meta-analysis that collapse back into analysis is, in fact, a genuine meta-frame that has within it a prime directive or some sort of teleology built in. So what I would say is the best way to understand this is that humanity is operating as it's a machine that's building itself, but it's running as it's building itself. Currently, the machine is incompletely built. And so it's definitely not running on all cylinders. And it's lopsided in a lot of ways because some aspects of the human machine are easier to build and more conducive to being built than others. So, for example, you could look at the progression of human history as one moving towards meta-analysis. It starts with simply executors who always assume they know what they're doing and they don't have to worry about the epistemological, or I guess you would say the arbitration or decision-making functions, your judgment functions, your TI and FI are your real judgment functions. So it's like, if I'm an executor in my purest form, would be like an ESTJ. I'm always looking elsewhere to know what it is, where I'm going, either to some sort of external norm, another person who's giving me directions about what they want, so I can plot a course. And I'm assuming that everything operates under a framework of course plotting, which means there's always definitely a desired outcome. I'm usually not the source of it because that's my fourth slot function as an ESTJ, which means I'm looking for multiple places for basically, and only in the fourth slot am I going, okay, well, what do I actually care about? And then, so to that extent, I just go, well, that's what it means to be able to implement a logic begins with personal interest. And then the means by which that personal interest is fulfilled is something you have control over, and doing it efficiently is logical, and doing it inefficiently is illogical. So I'm sorry this is dry. Look, here's the deal with the cognitive function talk. Right now, this is very TI heavy, and it's another thing I wanted to talk about and explain. Right now, in its current form, it's very TI heavy. Why? Because this is ideation. You're seeing an island being born of magma right now. When it's in the TI form, that means it's being ideated out with NE, and I'm checking to make sure it's TI sound. What I'm not doing is checking to make sure it's NI communicable easily or FE communicable broadly. And that's something that will have to be done after the ideation process occurs. I'm doing it here online in front of everybody because the ideas are in my head right now. And if I'm just pacing around, just going back and forth in my head and being not physically present at all, it's not doing me really any good. And at least this way I can listen to this again, and I'm going to need to listen to it again because I know what I'm saying here is a bunch of new ideation that I haven't gotten any kind of meaningful SI handle on yet. The only way I can get a meaningful SI handle on it is to experience it, which is to say it out loud and to listen to it, which I will do. Now, back to the topic, because I do want to get all this shit out of my head so I can stop like fixating on it, Uh, okay. Where was I going with this? Where was I going with this? Where was I going? Hi, Lizas Mom. I was going somewhere with this. Right. So, um, oh, right. The state of the world. Rachel Lapalosa. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I was hoping to see you because I want to tell you I am sorry, my darling, that I made an executive decision to live stream instead of calling you. I didn't forget, but I was like, you know what? I got to get this shit out of my head. Um, I was hoping that you'd show up so I could explain to you that I didn't forget to call you. I don't know if this is any better, but I chose not to. I chose to do this instead. So anyway, I felt kind of conflicted about it. But there you go. What type do you think Kierkegaard is? I don't know. I have no idea what type Kierkegaard is. I haven't really read much Kierkegaard, nor have I know anything about him really. But I would say that the philosophy of his that I found useful, maybe for debate, or which I mean, I know some of his arguments. Um, INFP, possibly, I guess. I just found out that I just found someone who looks like you but older, and he's talking twin flames. Check out Gold Ray Twin Flames and see if you see him as a doppelganger or HP. Gold Ray Twin Flames, okay. Um, yeah, that's the other thing I thought. I actually anticipated that too, Rachel. I was like, there's a decent chance she forgot whether I said I was going to call her or not. As soon as you start talking about, as soon as you start talking logistics, your eyes just gloss over like were putting on lip gloss on your eyeballs. I'm protecting my eyeballs with lip gloss. I'm protecting them out right now. Let's see the way that my eyes will be, the way that my shots and dean to fight to dean. Is he meowing right now? No, he's not meowing right now. That was 7 months ago. Oh wait. Twin flames now that you've tried thinking their way? Is that today? What's a twin flame? Twin flame. Twin flames, soulmates, soul connections, dealing with yeah. See what he sounds like.
One of the things that I've had the occasion to do with many of the people that I've been working with over the years is make this comment to them somewhere during the course of our discussion. Now that you've tried thinking your way through your twin flame connection, how is that working for you? And everybody I got the same answer. Well, I tried just about every way as you possibly can. You're thinking about where did I go wrong? What did I do right? What should he be doing or she be doing? Based on my past experience, things are not going very well. And then I always come back with this kind of an expression to them. Take a look. Now let me rephrase that. Do you remember when you first came together in this intense connection with another person? And everybody else say, yeah, I do very well. It happened totally by coincidence. Right. There he was, and there I was, and it was just one of those things that you never think would happen. Or in some other cases, hey, it was with somebody that's just down the street. And there's always an interesting, the word coincidence always comes up all the time. And I'll usually, about this one, I'll ask them, I said, have you ever considered the possibility that there's a something out there, by whatever label you want to call it, some power, some divine consciousness, God if you want, something that brought the two of you together in a totally unexplainable way?
I don't think he's an ENTP. I have to watch more. He's very interesting. I wish you hadn't directed me to him right then, because I generally don't like to leave big bits of dead air on my live streams, but he sucks me in right away. I want to hear what he has to say. It is now 7 o'clock. I don't have to work till 8, so I'm fine. Okay. In Mindham. I'm not quite sure why I'm skeptical, or I'm getting sort of a not quite ENTP vibe off of that guy. But well, I guess this is why. He said, he mentioned, like, I asked people, do you remember the first intense connection you had with this other party? And there's always some sort of response and a story that goes along with it. And I was anticipating that he was going to do meta-analysis of this sort. But when I asked them, what does it mean to remember a strong feeling? Some of them respond like this, and some of them respond like this. And it reflects to me that there's some sort of different value matrix here that's conflicting. And I'm recognizing the prioritizing the various value matrices is occurring. I just wouldn't. I would approach everything a little differently. He might be an ENFP. He might be an INTP. He seems similar to me, but he's not. I don't think, for some reason, I don't quite think he's an ENTP. I mean, I'm not saying he's not quite an ENTP. Like, he's not quite good enough to be. No, I'm saying I think there's something that's a little bit off that's making my NI go, nope, that's not the right choice. What's the other one you say? Face McGee? And Mindy Ham. In Mindy's ham? Who's in Mindy's ham? Who's gotten into Mindy's ham? Is that a euphemism for something, or does she actually have a ham in the fridge? Is it a YouTube channel? YouTube pessimist in Mindenham rants with humanity. In Mindham. He only has 12,000 subscribers. Google sucks again and again.
So Google has taken down another video they call the strike homing. It doesn't really matter. You get more than 3 of them. So maybe I'll post videos on the website probably. So I mean, it's only all the videos. Do.com. So I'll leave the website. I get that. So whatever. In the future, that's where the videos will be for a while. And such. So you really can't function on YouTube once they inform you.
Okay, this guy is definitely either an ENFP or an EHP. I haven't listened to him a lot for his reasoning, but he's definitely an NE-DOM. Whereas I'm not sure about that for the other guy at all. So that's one reason, I guess, why I'm. What interests INFPs? Ay, that's so depressing a question. Look, FI has just as much opportunity to experience life as the opposite of weight, to experience, or at least not the opposite of weight, to resonantly experience the weight of life. And that's really to be done by a FI and SI more than anything else. Even when you're experiencing the resonance of FE, you're really kind of filtering it through FI for the experiential aspect of it. So, okay, cool, Winston's mom. You don't like to talk on the phone, huh? Because I was going to say you could tell me I wasn't going to work if you want. Regardless, am I going bald? Armpits? I don't think so. I haven't really looked at my pit hair in a while. No, it's not really that dark against my skin, so it's kind of not super hairy in my pits, I guess. But I'm not like I used to be more hairy in my pits. If I used to be more hairy in my pits, then that would indicate that I potentially had pit mange, a disease that causes. Oh, that's fine. I don't like being on the phone either, usually. What it really boils down to is, what do you think the most effective or the fastest way for you to communicate is? I used to use a lot and like a lot Facebook Messenger's video message that you could send to somebody, like until they stopped. It's like it became too buggy. It's like only some people could receive them some of the time, and some of it didn't work. And I don't know what the fuck was wrong with it. So I was just like, yeah, I like that. I wish like I could send on Google Hangouts a video message to Rachel, record it. Hey Rachel, I'm going off to this. You can't do that as far as I know, or at least I haven't really tried, but on Google Hangouts. But that to me would be preferable to sending a message that I typed into text. Would be either a recorded voice message or a recorded video message, because it's just faster to talk out at what I have to say than it is to write it out with my typing fingers. However, that may be a function of me being NETI rather than NITE, in which case it may take you just as long to coalesce the ideas as it does to type them down, Like, it's like you guys, NI DOMs do their editing before they write somehow. Whereas an any DOM just puts it all out there and then goes back and says, okay, this is way too long and redundant, and let me get rid of some of this other garbage here. And this is too fancy of a word, even though you love it. This is too fancy of a word for me to use. So it's really important we distinguish between things like arbitrary, objective, subjective, external, internal, whatever. When I was talking here the other day with Asura Psych, and he was saying, well, it's subjective because it's introverted, and it's objective then because it's extroverted. All right, well, like I see internal and external as also having another name too, like that. But I would say that the other name for internal and external is better be something like epistemology versus agency, because it includes on the one hand, the knowledge and the deliberation functions, on the other hand, the action and the interface functions. So it's like, okay, well, what are the introverted and extroverted functions then? Why are we not agreeing on what comprises a meaningful conclusion to draw from introversion and extroversion? We can agree that objects some kinds of objects are external objects, and some kinds of objectivity are external kinds of objectivity. Namely, one external kind of objectivity is empiricism. If I show you that, if I say there are 3 rocks in this box or on the table, and you walk over to the table and you look at it and you go, yes, there are 3 rocks on the table. And Joe walks over and says, yes, there's 3 rocks on the table. And then I say, okay, now Julie, listen, I'm going to tell you a sentence, and you don't get to verify it yourself. I'm going to tell you how I verified it. And I'm going to tell you that these 2 guys verified it the same way. And you're going to tell me whether it's objectively true or not. And I go, my sentence is there are 3 rocks on the table. I verified this by looking at the table and seeing 3 rocks. And I asked both of these guys to verify as well. So at least at the time of the verification, would you agree that I was telling the truth when I said there were 3 rocks on the table? She would say yes. And he'd say, now that's objective. See, now that's objective. That would be one way of understanding objectivity, is saying that there has to actually be a physical link, object like that, right? On the other hand, if we did view objectivity like that, if we view that as that is the totality and the definition of objectivity, then we'd end up with this problem. only pigs oink. That thing oinked. Therefore, it's a pig. So I go, look, here's the thing. Listen, Joe, I'm going to tell you this thing's a pig. And I tell you why. All things oink. That thing oinks. That thing's a pig. I mean, I'm sorry, only things that oink are pigs? No, only pigs oink. Sorry. Only pigs oink? No. All pigs oink. That thing oinks. That's a pig. Now listen, you can hear it oinking. All pigs oink. That thing oinks. It's a pig. Here's a sound. You can hear it oinking. You verified empirically that it's oinking. And here's a scientist or whatever who agrees that all pigs oink. So I've shown you both, yes, it's empirically true, that thing, all pigs oink. I've shown empirically true that that thing oinks. And now let's look at the thing. It is a pig. Okay? So if you can verify all those things, then again, should we conclude, but not the conclusion, should we be able to deduce the conclusion? Well, no. In other words, just because you verified that all pigs oink, and just because you verified that that thing's a pig, doesn't mean we can conclude that that thing oinks. No, I'm sorry, I keep fucking this up. Just because we can conclude that all pigs oink, and we can conclude that that thing is oinking, doesn't mean we can conclude it's a pig. I can oink, 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 oink. That doesn't make me a pig. So in some instances, however, the thing that's oinking actually is a pig. We don't actually always get to check to see if it's actually a pig with our own eyes. We don't get to check the conclusion directly. So we have reason sometimes to say, yes, it's objectively true that it's a pig without us actually getting to look to see. For example, Julie, she had to agree, yes, objectively it is true that there are 3 rocks. When you said there were 3 rocks on the table, it was true. You looked at the table, saw there were 3 rocks, and both these guys agreed. They checked it themselves, saw there were 3 rocks. So yes, it was true. I don't need to see myself. I conclude that it was true objectively, right? Now, the same thing applies with the pig analogy. So Julie's there, and she doesn't get to look at the thing to see if it's a pig, but she does get to verify that, in fact, all pigs oink, and she does get to verify, in fact, that the thing is a pig. So should she agree with Joe's conclusion? In the first case, she should agree with Joe's conclusion that it's true that there were 3 rocks on the table, because the way that that thing is legitimized is appropriate to the thing being legitimized. On the other hand, in the second instance, the way the thing's being legitimized is not appropriate to the thing being legitimized. We shouldn't judge whether or not Joe's conclusion is correct when the reasoning he provides is wrong based on anything other than our independent verification of the conclusion. Whereas if the modality used to establish objectively the truth of something is correct, then we don't need to or shouldn't make as a burden that any additional verification happens, right? Look, so the point is, people assume they never question that question. What was your question? I don't know. Let me go back. I got to go to work pretty soon. When someone has decided they are ready to check out, you will not reach them with words. Ask them if they have their paperwork lined up, because those left behind will have paperwork. I think you're onto something. I found I handle interacting with people better by seeing the words and hearing you speak. Again, I can pause you or slow you down and autocorrect myself. Eric, what would you suggest? Oh my God, I want you free. You're killing me here. You're asking me about an INFP too. I don't think you are asking me for advice about a type that I'm least qualified to give advice to. The thing that makes INFPs supervisors of VNFPs is they understand us and we don't understand them. I'd be afraid to give you any answer to that because it might have unintentional consequences. I don't understand the vectors of them well enough to provide any advice. No, see, that I'll give you advice on that right there. Boy, that's a TE frame. No, that's not true. Because it's not always the case that just because you can establish a problem, that doing something is advisable. How many words did it take to accept Rachel? How many words did it take to fall in love with RL? Who's RL? Oh, Rachel Appalosa. She never used just two initials. It took a lot of words to fall in love with Rachel. A lot of words for both of us. Or at least it took a lot of words to navigate all the barriers to love, which is probably a better way of putting it. I mean, I think you should go to the INFP and tell them that you love them a great deal, you're attached to them a great deal, and that any loss of them will cause you great agony because the FI Dom puts themselves in your shoes. That advice seems safe. Any riffed it off of Eric's Stickerverse thing he said there. So thank you, Eric Stickerverse, or I wouldn't have had that thought. You caused me to have that thought. 100, 1,000, 400,000, and 2. That equals 400, 1,102. Are I supposed to add them together? Oh, you're asking me how many? You want a concrete answer like that, huh? Well, I became very smitten with Rachel in short order in about 2 days. We had a lot of conversations for a couple of days, and I found myself smitten with her. At first, largely because probably she was an attractive female who was giving me body language saying that she liked me and was interested in me. And that I'm naturally is going to sort of get my I don't know, dopamine hormone soup of, ooh, life's exciting, right? So right off the bat, there was this non-word-based reaction to a lot of word-based stuff. Namely that she was affirming me, I was affirming her. We were appreciating, I think, the ability of each other to not make the mistakes or to be, to not be discordant with us. What words did she speak? She complimented me on my music. That's one thing she would do. That would be an example of words that were designed to endear me, probably. But she also made an effort to sort of convey metaframe shit. She didn't explicitly say this, but we had conversations that were things like this. Look, I know I'm effusive in my praise, but I'm aware that you're aware that thing makes people like you, but I'm honest because I am effusive because I actually do like your music that much. And it was like there was little things that INFJs say that convey all of that shit to ENTPs, but don't say all that stuff. So I can't tell you exactly how they do it because I don't really remember what she'd say or whatever. Did she sing to me? No, I'd sing to her probably. She does like sing. We sing together, but if one of us were to sing to the other one, it would be me singing to her probably. Except, at night, I do ask her to sing a lullaby to my penis, which can sometimes otherwise be restless in the evening. Very special kind of lullaby. It's called Go to Sleep, Mr. Penis. Let me just get that stuff out of you first. Right, and I was affirming that I just wasn't flying you out for booty. I was conveying to her that I wasn't making any promises in those early phone calls, maybe, but I was conveying to her that I promise I'm not here to exploit you. I'm not here to take advantage of the situation to have my fun without taking you seriously as a person, you know? Right. But see, I also wanted to cover my own ass. I wanted to make sure she wasn't here to exploit me. And I don't need her to demonstrate a non-exploitative reality. I need her to be willing to show the sort of non-exploitative theater, to be fair. So I had said to her, well, if you can fly yourself out here, if you're willing to buy the ticket, fly yourself out here and back, I will pay for everything when you're here. It'll probably be about equal in terms of cost or so for a week, which it probably would have been, you know, if the week hadn't stretched immediately into forever, you know. But that was a way of us framing the thing properly. She was willing to risk something, and I was willing to guarantee something. You know, yeah, we were in limerence. I went from, yeah, I'm a big pimp, this chick's gonna fly her, yeah, to I'm in love with her in like 5 seconds. It didn't last. My big pimp phase, where I was like driving around listening to music, being like, fuck yeah, it's just gonna fly out here, I'm gonna bang this chick, it's gonna be great. It only lasted the period of time between our first and second phone call, you know. And then by the time the end of the second phone call, it's like, oh shit, I love Rachel Apollosa. I'm in love. Wait, what's that? What's all this moisture seeping from my pores? Ew, I've got FI all over me. And I like it. Oh my God, that's gaff. It was like that kind of. I've gotten more used to it. I think I've learned to own my seepage a little bit more, you know. Rachel, what magic did you spew? Rachel gave me vulnerability. She gave me actual vulnerability. She is an unusual INFJ in that regard. I think reality has forced some vulnerabilities on her at that point and in general that have compelled her to do the best FENI solution to the problem, which is to own it as best you can and not try to spin it or sweep it or whatever, but give it to the partner and let them and see if you can trust them with it, you know? Because of course that's the real way to trap an EHP. If you want to trap them, is to trust them a lot and behave accordingly. It's like then they'll be like they sort of take on the responsibility for you that your trust infers that you have conveyed to them that you will provide. Since you don't have any FI, you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing. Speaking of cheese, there's a player who plays for the Akron basketball team whose name is Tyler Cheese. I didn't try to fix Rachel at all. She gave me her vulnerability, which included, I don't want to be fixed. I'm TE fucking polar. Do not try to fix me. You know, do not structure things with utilitarian rewards and consequences and ordinal order of operations. One big thing is I'm a 7 too. She's a 7, you know? We're both 7s. I want her to be who she is, how she is, and do what she wants to do and be happy and get her way. And my biggest concern is that because her Effie is so other focused, that I'm not going to pick up on the subtle cues that she's giving that will indicate to me what she really wants to do when a clumsy and non-intuitive glance at the words might convey something different or even the opposite. Are you an INFJ, Fun Chaser? You sound like you might be based on what you said there. I mean, I think ENTP's trying to get fixed too, though. So you could be an ENTP trying to get fixed. There once was a lass called Eric. She said to SE, the lovely host Eric, it was rather dear, but could not quite pioneer. She couldn't say no to the host Eric. So they're both named Eric, host Eric, and the girl are named Eric too? We didn't know I was INFJ either. It's not like we were seeking each other for the type. Right. I thought she was an ENFJ, and it was an example of me in my vision at the time, or my approach at the time, which was, since getting my dual didn't work, I'm not going to consider type at all. Not that I had intentionally gotten my dual anyway, but since socionics dual didn't work out for me, obviously that's not determinate. So I can make it work just as well as any type, I guess, if I like them, or if at least if I don't dislike them. And of course, that's really how I dated until I met Rachel. Like I was ready to just sort of stride on into another relationship with this ENTJ woman with whom there was no spark at all, except she had better NI than me, and even better FI because it's force law, and she didn't let it happen or whatever. Some humans speak kindly as a mask, or so it goes, as the hidden intentions are evil, but our intentions, the apt subject of examination, is the quality of evil attached to intentions, actions, or only one. I would say intentions are overrated. The real question is, what are their value and value criterion? So what I mean by that is my value is righteousness in general. My value criterion is truth mostly. Rachel's value is truth, and her value criterion is, I would say, TI stuff like correctness. So they're with those. Well, since we genuinely express those as in our being, that means we're not so damaged that we can't express who we are. I think people who don't either fail on the value or value criterion metric to uphold the good are broken, damaged in some way. Probably they don't trust enough to uphold the good. So what I would say is I trust Rachel because I understand that she much more values the story than the reality. What I fear a lot is the normal person's proneness to temptation of a kind that I can't tolerate them being tempted by. So I hate the idea of people being tempted to take actions that are bad. You know, for somebody who's tempted by sex, for example, they have to prioritize the experience a lot. If I were to cheat on Rachel, that would mean either, well, it would have to be because could never be because I was unhappy and therefore I cheat, because that wouldn't be that wouldn't be me giving in temptation. That would be me running contrary to my core values and natures. So it would have to be, in theory, even I was so tempted by the promise of glorious experience that I prioritized it over the story. the overall story, what story I'm going to tell later. I will never have that happen to me in a billion years, because the core aspect of my nature that is most important is that the story I'm telling about myself be the right story, and that it and that the metaframe of that story be the right metaframe, namely that I prioritize always the long term. I am to narrative as my dad is to like financial planning stuff. He's always looking to the long term. And you kind of at some point you go, but Dad, this is crazy. Why don't you actually, you can't always be saving for later. At some point it's got to be later, right? So in that sense, I'm always preserving the longest term in frame, the integrity of that frame most, which is as long as I'm always upholding that, for example, as the highest good, that I always admit when I'm wrong and correct myself when I've been wrong, or if I've lied or made a mistake or something, come clean about it, apologize, all that kind of shit is my highest value. Then in any individual instance, I'm never going to prioritize a different value metaphysically, which means I'm only susceptible to sin in that regard, usually on physical grounds. So I tend to view physicality as evil. Like evil happens when someone prioritizes experience over the story. But what I know is that Rachel prioritizes the story as well. We both have the same core value. It's like all the observations, the facts and evidence and stuff like that, the words that have been said, the words that are still said, and the story we're telling about what happened are things we can't do anything with a lot of times. Or sometimes we can do something with them, but we have to reframe them. We can't change realities on the metaphysical plane. And therefore physical realities matter, because like it wouldn't matter if a woman touched my penis in the right context and for the right reasons or whatever, because it's the story that matters, not the physicality of it. So let's say I go to the doctor's office and they say, okay, put on this little robe here. And I try to take out my pants and I start tripping and my penis is flopping around. Whoa, out into the hallway. And it falls against a nurse's hand as I'm tripping down the hallway. Rachel wouldn't break up with me over that, I'm sure. She probably wouldn't even be mad at me. I would have to say, listen, Rachel, I've got to inform you of an incident that occurred here, because it would be critically important that she not find out later that this happened and I had hidden it from her, because then all of a sudden it doesn't matter that the truth is it was totally harmless and not my fault and not intentional. It was intentional to hide it from her. And so I might as well have hidden the thing. It's like that shit, But see, Rachel and I both understand all of that, and we're on the same page about all of that. So I trust her because of who she is fundamentally in relation to narratives and physicalities. Okay, so Candace would like me to explain to the women what it's like to have a menstrual cycle. So, okay, what's going to happen to you as you proceed through your womanhood is about once a month, you're going to start getting a little cranky, a little fussy, a little moody, and your stomach's going to hurt a bit, and you're going to go like, what's going on here? What's going on? What's going on? Well, it's your uterus. It's falling out. And when it falls out, it causes you to bleed, obviously, because it's part of your body. And when you rip parts of your body off, blood comes out, obviously. So what you're going to find is, unfortunately, I've got some bad, that sounds like bad news. I've got some more bad news. Guess where it comes out? Yep, right down there in the old wahoo, okay? So what you're going to want to do is get a blood diaper. It's called a pad, and functionally it's a blood diaper for women like you whose uterus is falling out. And here's what I want to recommend as well. It's not just for Countess, for Rachel, for everybody here, all the women. Be smart. Use always with wings. Here's the difference. Other kinds of blood diapers don't have wings. So sometimes you get a little seepage on the top part of the inside thigh. Now with wings, you're protected from that. Also, remember to change your blood diaper frequently because it will fill up and overflow, and then the wings are irrelevant at that point, right? The wings won't help your blood diaper fly away. They'll just protect your upper thighs. Women want any more advice on women problems before I go? Anybody want to hear about how to give birth, how to breastfeed, anything like that? No? Yeah, I'm advising against that this year, Archangel. You're gonna have to put that back on the shelf. I'm the expert on these things, and listen, I'll tell you what. All the women here are going to be invited to my conference this summer, which is called Vaginal Blood Sploosh Splash Party, a Learning Symposium. You're all welcome. I will go over all your feminine hygiene questions. I'll talk to you about what those bumps on your chest are, what's supposed to come out of them, what comes out of your butt, what comes out, if anything, your puss, and under what circumstances, the difference between discharge and a baby, for example. A lot of people try to wipe up the discharge when they discover it's a newborn baby. Don't want to do that. All right, so anyway, I'm offering my services there. If you are a woman in the world who would like feminine hygiene lessons, this July 4th at the Toronto Sheraton, we are having Vaginal Blood Sploosh Splash Party, a Learning Symposium. Be there, be square. Tickets are $12,000 a piece. If you are on your menstrual cycle, you get a discount, minus $2,000 off the price. Goodbye. I gotta go to work. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Rachel, I love you, my darling. I'm sorry I didn't call you before you went to bed. And don't forget, you especially, to eat special relationship cheese.